In this video, we're going to look at rounding numbers to the nearest whole, to the nearest tenth, the nearest hundredth, and the nearest thousandth. Before continuing with this video, make sure you're comfortable with rounding numbers to the nearest 10, 100, or 1,000, which we covered in the previous video. Let's start with question 1. We need to round 3.1 to the nearest whole number. Now, 3.1 itself is not a whole number, so all we have to do is find the closest whole number to 3.1. Now I can see straight away that 3.1 is a little bit more than 3 and it's less than 4. So those are the two whole numbers between which we'll find 3.1. Now, is it closer to 3 or to 4? Well, to decide, I can draw a number line and mark what's exactly halfway between 3 and 4. And the halfway point there is 3.5. Now I can see that 3.1 is going to be to the left of 3.5. 3.1 is less than 3.5. So this is just 3 and 1/10. That's our tenths place value column, remember? So it's obvious that 3.1 is closer to 3 than 4. So 3.1 to the nearest whole number is just 3. Let's have a look at question B. This time we need to round 9.45 to the nearest whole number. 9.45 lies between 9 and 10, so I'm just going to mark them on a number line as follows. There's 9, there's 10. The halfway point is 9.5. Now that is 9 wholes and 5/10. 5/10 is the same as a half. Where is 9.45 on this number line? Well, we've only got 9 and 4/10 and a bit. So because 4/10 is less than 5/10, we know that 9.45 is going to be to the left of 9.5. It's less than 9.5. It's going to be somewhere around there. So that shows that it is closer to 9 than 10. It's to the left of the halfway point. So to the nearest whole number, 9.45 is just 9. By the way, if you're a bit confused about why I've put 9.45 to the left of 9.5, then you need to go back and check out topic N15a, which is on ordering decimals. Pause the video now and have a go at question C for yourself. Here's what you should have got. 8.67 is clearly more than 8, but it's less than 9. So those are the whole numbers I'm going to mark on my number line. We've got 8 and 9. The halfway point between those is 8.5. Now, where is 8.67 on this number line? Well, we've got 8 wholes and 6/10 and a bit more. So that's greater than 8 wholes and 5/10. So it's somewhere to the right of this halfway point. In fact, it's somewhere around here. So that's 8.67. And because it's to the right of the halfway point, it's closer to 9 than 8. So to the nearest whole number, we say 8.67 rounds to 9. Moving on to part D, we're now rounding 0.81 to 1 decimal place. So we're not rounding to the nearest whole number anymore, we're rounding to 1 decimal place. Now, 1 decimal place means the same as to the nearest tenth. Notice that the first place value column after the decimal point is the tenths place value column. Now, we can see here that I've got 0 ones or 0 units. I've got 8/10, and then I've got a little bit more, in this case 1/100th. So I've got a little bit more than 8/10, but I've got less than 9/10. So that's what I'm going to show on my number line. 8/10 is 0.8. I've simply got 8 in the tenths place value column. And 9/10 is 0.9. So here's the number line. And I need to work out whether 0.81 is closer to 0.8 or 0.9. Well, the halfway point is 0.85. So that's 8/10 and 5/100. 0.81, that's 8/10 and 1/100, is less than 0.85. It's to the left of this. And in fact, it's over here, very close to 0.8. So 0.81 is closer to 0.8 than 0.9. So when we round it to one decimal place, we simply get 0.8. Let's move on to part E. We need to round 6.451 to one decimal place. So that means to the nearest tenth again. Pause the video and see if you can do this one for yourself. Here's what you should have got. 6.451 is 6 and 4/10 and a bit more. So on our number line, we would need 6 and 4/10, that's 6.4, and going up in steps of 1/10 because we're trying to round to the nearest tenth, remember? The next one would be 6.5. Let's draw the number line and mark the halfway point. What's halfway between 6.4 and 6.5? Well, that's 6.45. Now let's see where 6.451 is on this number line. Well, it's actually just a tiny bit to the right of this midpoint, this halfway point, because 6.451 has 6 ones, 4/10, 5/100, and 1,000th. And you'll see it's got the same number of ones, the same number of tenths, the same number of hundredths, but this one extra 1,000th. So it's one tiny little bit further along than 6.45. So 6.451, it's to the right of this halfway point, which means it's closer to 6.5 than 6.4. So to one decimal place, or to the nearest tenth, it is 6.5. By the way, if this one said 6.45 exactly, so it was exactly on the midpoint, then we would round up to 6.5. You might remember we talked about this rule in the previous video. If the number you're trying to round is exactly halfway between the two numbers that you put on your number line, then you always round up to the number that's higher. Let's carry on with the examples. In question F, we're rounding 7.17 to the nearest tenth, which is the same as rounding to one decimal place. Pause the video and see if you can have a go at this one for yourself. Here's what you should have found. 7.17, so that's 7 and 1/10 and a bit, lies between 7 and 1/10 and 7 and 2/10. Halfway in between those, we have 7.15. So 7.17 is to the right of that, which means it's closer to 7.2. So to the nearest tenth, it is 7 and 2/10. Moving on to question G, we want to round 4.368 to two decimal places. Now, rounding something to two decimal places is the same as rounding it to the nearest hundredth, because the second place value column after the decimal point is the hundredths column. Now, what we've got here is 4 units or 4 ones, 3/10, 6/100ths, and a bit more. So we've got 4.36, that's just a bit less than this value. And then going up in steps of 1/100th gives us 4.37 as the next number I want to mark on my number line. And 4.368 is in between these two numbers. It's bigger than 4.36, but it's less than 4.37. Now, is it closer to 4.36 or 4.37? Let's mark the halfway point. That's 4.365. And hopefully you can see that 4.368 is slightly greater. In fact, it is over here somewhere. That means it is closer to 4.37. So 4.37 is our answer. Just notice, when we round something to 2 decimal places, we need to make sure that our answer has exactly 2 digits after the decimal point. And in this case, we do. Similarly, if you're rounding something to the nearest tenth or to 1 decimal place, you need to make sure your answer has exactly 1 digit after the decimal point. Pause the video and have a go at question H for yourself. Here's what you should have got. On this number line, we can see that 8.862 is closer to 8.86 than 8.87. So the answer is 8.86. In question I, we are now rounding this number to 3 decimal places. So that is to the nearest thousandth, because the third digit after the decimal point is in the thousandths column. Now what we've got here is 8 ones, 7 tenths, no hundredths, and 3 thousandths and a little bit more. So we've got a little bit more than 8.703. And because we're rounding to the nearest thousandth, I need to go up in a step of 1,000th to 8.704 on the number line. And we now have to decide whether 8.7036 is closer to 8.703 or 8.704. As usual, I'm going to mark on the halfway point. That would be 8.7035. And now I can see that 8.7036 is greater than 8.7035. It goes about here. And that means it is closer to 8.704. And there is our answer. Notice, when rounding to 3 decimal places, we need to end up with an answer that has 3 digits after the decimal point, which is what we've got here. Finally, have a go at question J for yourself. Here's what you should have got. 0.00313 is a little bit greater than 3 thousandths, because we've got 3 thousandths and then a little bit more. So it's greater than 0.003, but it's less than 0.004. Notice I've gone up in steps of 1,000th because I'm trying to round to the nearest thousandth. So there's my number line. The halfway point here is 0.0035. And we can see that 0.000313 is less than 0.0035 because this 1 is less than the 5. So 0.00313 is somewhere to the left of the midpoint, which means it is closer to 0.003. And there is our answer.